The morning rush at Sterling Financial's 47th floor was interrupted by a scene no one would forget. The sharp smell of cleaning solution hung in the air as Kesha Washington, a 52-year-old black woman in a crisp navy janitorial uniform, worked quietly near the executive lobby. Without warning, regional manager Derek Williams strode over, his polished shoes clicking against the marble floor. "Clean this mess properly, girl. My shoes cost more than your monthly rent," he sneered, before kicking over the yellow mop bucket. Dirty water splashed across Kesha's uniform, soaking into the fabric and pooling around her worn sneakers. Derek's iPhone was already in his hand, the red dot of an Instagram live recording blinking, as he angled the camera down at her. "Watch this cleaning lady learn some respect," he announced to his growing online audience. Comments began streaming in, some cheering him on, others urging him to show her who's boss. Employees passed by, eyes averted, unwilling to intervene. Kesha stood still, her dark eyes calm, reaching silently for paper towels. Beside her supply cart sat a sleek black briefcase with a gold KW monogram, ignored by everyone, including Derek, who was too busy performing for his viewers. Around them, the office buzz faded into uneasy silence, the tension thick. For Derek, this was another morning's entertainment. For Kesha, it was the opening act of a day that would change everything, not just for the two of them, but for the entire company. From the outside, nothing about Kesha Washington's appearance suggested she held a position of power. Her navy janitorial uniform was neatly pressed, her supply cart organized, with the precision of someone who took pride in quiet, unseen work. She moved with the steady rhythm of a night shift, veteran measured, methodical, unhurried. To Sterling Financial's employees, she was simply part of the cleaning crew, one of the invisible workers, who ensured their gleaming executive floors looked pristine each morning. But beneath the surface of that unassuming facade lay a truth so explosive it could shift the very foundations of the company. Kesha Washington was not a janitor. She was the newly appointed Vice President, Corporate Culture and Diversity, a direct report to Chairman Roberts himself. 3 weeks earlier, she had flown in on a red-eye from Sterling's San Francisco headquarters, her first-class boarding pass tucked beside an MBA diploma from Stanford Graduate School of Business earned with magna cum laude honors in 2019. Her mandate was clear: conduct a covert, ground-level assessment of the company's internal culture, identify patterns of discrimination, and determine whether Sterling's public image of inclusion matched the starry reality within its walls. This undercover role was no vanity project. Sterling Financial had been bleeding talent, particularly from diverse backgrounds, at an alarming rate. Lawsuits were pending, union complaints were stacking up, and key client accounts had walked away citing cultural incompatibility as the reason. Chairman Roberts knew the numbers told one story, but the day-to-day human reality told another. To see the truth, they needed someone who could disappear into the fabric of the company, someone who could witness the unfiltered behavior of managers when they thought no one important was watching. Kesha was the perfect choice. She had spent 23 years navigating corporate ladders, from entry-level analyst to board-level strategist. She spoke 4 languages fluently: Mandarin, Spanish, French, and Arabic, and had built a reputation for transforming toxic corporate cultures into thriving, inclusive environments. Yet she understood better than anyone that cultural audits conducted from behind a desk only revealed so much. To really understand how a company treated its people, you had to live among them, not as a boss, but as one of them. So for 3 weeks, Kesha donned the uniform, clocked in for night shifts, and quietly took notes. She observed how managers spoke to cleaning staff, how HR handled minor grievances, how diversity hires were integrated or alienated within teams. She kept her briefcase close, its gold KW monogram a silent reminder of who she really was, though no one seemed to notice it. Inside were meticulous logs, statistical reports, and confidential witness statements she had collected. Every interaction, every overheard comment, every act of respect or disrespect went into her growing body of evidence. Her assignment wasn't without its challenges. Some employees ignored her entirely, others dismissed her with curt commands. Most of the executive floor treated her like background noise until Derek Williams. From the moment they crossed paths, Derek's tone toward her was not just condescending, but openly hostile. He relished small humiliations, barking orders in front of others, making snide comments about diversity hires, and hinting she should know her place. For Kesha, It was disturbing but not surprising. She had been hired to expose exactly this kind of behavior. Still, she maintained her composure. Her training taught her that blowing her cover too soon could compromise the mission. She knew timing was everything. Derek's arrogance and his tendency to perform for an audience were weaknesses she could use. And so, she endured the quote, small daily indignities, recording each one, waiting for the inevitable moment when he would go too far in front of too many witnesses. That moment came on the morning of the board's quarterly meeting. 47 minutes. Before she was scheduled to brief the company's leadership, Derek staged his spectacle. The kicked-over mop bucket, the splashing dirty water, the Instagram live broadcast. It was all meant to degrade her publicly. But Derek didn't realize the cleaning lady he was. Humiliating was scheduled to walk into the executive conference room later that morning with the authority to recommend his termination. As his live stream audience grew, so did Kesha's mental tally of policy violations. Unauthorized recording of workplace interactions. Creation of a hostile work environment. Discriminatory remarks on camera. Each one was a nail in the coffin he was building for himself. And still, no one around them suspected the truth. To them, she was just another service worker at the mercy of a powerful manager's bad mood. But in less than an hour, the power dynamic would flip. The woman Derek saw as powerless was, in fact, the one person in the building with the authority and the evidence to bring his wanting minions career to an end. Kesha Washington had come to Sterling Financial to uncover the hidden realities of its culture. That morning, she realized she wouldn't have to dig any further. The truth was revealing itself, live, in front of hundreds of viewers. And soon, the entire company would see it too. The tension on Sterling Financial's 47th floor had reached a breaking point. What had begun as Derek Williams' petty act of humiliation was now a full-blown public spectacle. His voice carried through the open lobby, sharp and commanding, as if the very volume could assert his authority. Rodriguez, your cleaning staff is incompetent and insubordinate. I want this woman terminated immediately for property damage and disrespect. He barked into the PLOST phone, his words amplified by the fact that his Instagram live feed was still running. The viewer count on his screen ticked upward. Hundreds were now tuned in, watching the Masons and scene unfold in real time. Employees lingered in doorways and at coffee machines, pretending to be occupied while stealing glances at the unfolding drama. Phones were out. Some recorded discreetly. Others brazenly aimed their cameras toward the center of the chaos. Derek, fueled by the attention, doubled down. Make sure security escorts her out, he told Rodriguez. And check her pockets before she leaves. These people can't be trusted. The comment hung in the air like a slap. A few employees flinched. Others exchanged uncomfortable glances. Derek didn't notice or didn't care. His focus was on crafting the perfect villain-victim narrative for his digital audience. Kesha Washington, however, remained composed. Her hands moved methodically, placing cleaning supplies back into her cart. Her uniform clung damply to her from the earlier spill, but her posture was straight, her breathing steady. The sleek black briefcase with the gold KW monogram sat beside her cart, its presence entirely overlooked by Derek and most of the bystanders. To them, it was just another piece of janitorial gear. To Kesha, it was the vault of truth, a container holding 3 weeks' worth of evidence. A Stanford MBA diploma, her Sterling Financial Board ID, and meticulously documented proof of Derek's discriminatory behavior. HR Director Michelle Torres arrived, her heels clicking briskly on the marble floor. She surveyed the scene with visible unease. Derek, what exactly is going on here? She asked, keeping her tone even. Derek gestured toward Kesha with exaggerated exasperation. Insubordinate cleaning staff, he replied. I've documented everything on social media for legal purposes. Michelle's eyes flicked to his phone. Live streaming a workplace conflict was not only against company policy, it was a legal minefield. You need to stop filming. Now, she warned. Derek waved her off. Relax. I'm covering myself. His grin widened as comments flooded in, most of them cheering him on, though a few viewers began to question the optics. Security Chief Jake Morrison arrived next, flanked by 2 guards. He had always found Kesha respectful and professional, even warm. Now, watching her stand in silent dignity as Derek berated her, he felt a twinge of unease. Sir, we can escort her. Jake began carefully. But, do it, Derek snapped, cutting him off. By now, the crowd had swelled. Word had spread quickly across multiple floors and even into Slack channels. Junior manager Sarah Monroe stood near the elevators, recording every moment on her phone. She had worked under Derek long enough to know his casual racism wasn't new, but she had never seen it so openly displayed. Her heart pounded as she kept camera steady. Derek's audience passed the 500 viewer mark. Emboldened, he decided to push the scene toward what he imagined would be a climactic humiliation. "Empty your pockets," he ordered. "Kesha." His voice was sharp, laced with the smugness of someone convinced of their superiority. Kesha complied without a word. From her right pocket, she produced a small wallet, her building keycard, and her phone. The screen lit up, revealing dozens of missed calls. Calls Derek didn't even bother to notice. "Other pocket," he demanded. From her left, she withdrew a platinum American Express Centurion card and a sleek black fob engraved with Sterling Financial's logo and the words Chairman's Club Executive Access. Murmurs rippled through the gathered employees. Sarah zoomed in on the items, her breath catching. Those weren't things a night shift janitor carried. Comments on Derek's live feed shifted rapidly. "Why does she have a Centurion card? That keychain looks like executive level access. Bro, this looks bad." Still, Derek plowed ahead, oblivious to the shift in tone both in the room and online. "Where? Did you steal these?" he demanded. Kesha met his gaze evenly. "They're mine," she said. The viewer count surged past 600. Local news stations began picking up the feed. And still, Derek stood there, towering over her, certain he was in control. What he didn't know was that the briefcase by her cart was about to turn the entire narrative on its head. In that moment, the imbalance of power seemed absolute. Derek with his title, his security detail, his public platform, Kesha, with her damp uniform, her silence, her supposed vulnerability. But under that calm exterior, she was already calculating the perfect timing to end the charade. Because once she opened that briefcase, every smug word, every recorded insult, every ounce of false authority Derek had wielded would collapse before the eyes of his staff, his online audience, and soon, the entire company. The moment Derek Williams had been building toward, his grand finale of public humiliation was about to collapse in on itself. Surrounded by a semicircle of employees, and phones raised to capture every second, Derek demanded a public apology. "Tell everyone you're sorry for disrespecting Sterling Financial and its management," he ordered. His tone dripping with superiority. Silence hung heavy in the air. Kesha Washington's dark eyes moved. From face to face, Sarah Monroe recording nervously, Jake Morrison standing rigid with shame, Michelle Torres calculating the legal fallout, Luis Rodriguez frowning in confusion. Finally, her gaze settled on Derek's phone camera, still live to hundreds of viewers. "I think," she began softly, "there's been a misunderstanding." She walked over to her supply cart and lifted the sleek black briefcase with the gold KW monogram. Derek didn't stop her. In his mind, it contained nothing more than a janitor's tools. But when she clicked it open, the contents gleamed under the harsh fluorescent light. A Stanford Graduate School of Business MBA diploma, Sterling Financial Board member. Credentials, a first-class boarding pass from the San Francisco headquarters, and an ID badge. Reading Kesha R. Washington, Vice President, Corporate Culture and Diversity. The live stream comments erupted. Plot twist incoming. She's the boss? Best karma video ever. In the room, whispers rippled like a shockwave. Marcus Thompson, a junior analyst, finally placed her face. He'd seen it in the company newsletter just weeks ago, announcing her board appointment. "I'm Vice President Washington," she said, her voice now carrying an authority that shifted the entire energy of the floor. "For the past 3 weeks, I've been conducting an undercover culture assessment of your department." Derek's phone slipped from his hand and clattered to the marble floor, still broadcasting. His audience watched his posture shrink, his once confident smirk replaced by the pale panic of someone realizing their career was dissolving in real time. Kesha stepped to a nearby desk and began laying out documents with meticulous care. "Your department shows a 73% turnover rate among diverse employees in the past 18 months. The company-wide average is 23%. You have 4 pending discrimination lawsuits totaling $847,000 in potential damages. And," she flipped to another page, "your team's revenue declined by $2.3 million. this quarter. Alone due to client defections. 3 of which specifically cited cultural concerns and unprofessional management behavior. Michelle Torres, the HR director, gripped the wall for balance as the numbers sank in. Luis Rodriguez, still processing what he was seeing, spoke up. Miss Washington, you've been working night shifts for 3 weeks, I thought. I mean, your work was perfect. Always respectful to everyone. That's because she is a professional, Sarah Monroe said from the crowd, her phone still recording. Derek, she helped me with the Mandarin client presentation last week. She speaks 4 languages and knows more about corporate law than half the legal team. Derek tried to recover, his voice shaky. This is some kind of setup. Cleaning staff don't become executives. This is fake. But the evidence was irrefutable. Kesha's Stanford diploma bore the official seal. Her ID badge was company issued. And the manila folder she now opened revealed 3 weeks' worth of documented behavior timestamps, security footage, and transcriptions of Derek's own discriminatory comments. She turned one of the pages toward the onlookers. This is Mr. Williams, recorded saying, "These people can't be trusted and we need to hire more Americans, not diversity candidates, who can't do the work." The audio was clear, Derek's voice unmistakable. Several employees glanced at each other, their discomfort giving way to quiet fury. At that moment, the elevator doors opened, and Chairman Roberts stepped onto the floor with 3 board members in tow. Their expressions were grim but calm. They had seen enough in the company's crisis reports to know something serious was unfolding. Miss Washington, Roberts said, are you ready to present your findings? Yes, sir, Kesha replied, her tone steady. But I think it would be most effective to conduct this meeting right here. We have multiple witnesses, real-time data, and the subject of the investigation present. The board gathered around as Kesha summarized her report. Market impact. From Derek's live stream alone. $23 million in lost market capitalization within 30 minutes. Legal exposure. Federal discrimination charges, state labor violations, and breach of multiple company policies. Operational damage. Client losses totaling $8.7 million annually. In the corner, Derek's once loyal phone audience was still watching, over 1,800 people, now commenting furiously, as the scale of his downfall became apparent. Kesha closed her briefcase with a quiet snap. Mr. Williams' actions this morning are not an isolated incident. They are the culmination of a pattern that has cost Sterling Financial millions and damaged our reputation beyond measure. It's time for accountability. For the first time all morning, Derek had no words. The silence that followed wasn't just the end of his authority, it was the moment everyone in that room understood the true weight of the woman they had mistaken for invisible. The marble-floored lobby of Sterling Financial's 47th floor had become an impromptu 12 courtroom. The board members, led by Chairman Roberts, didn't wait to move to the executive conference room. They formed a tight circle around Kesha Washington's makeshift evidence table. Derek Williams stood off to the side, pale and rigid, his phone lying face down, where it had fallen. The live stream was still running, broadcasting his unraveling to thousands. Miss Washington, Roberts said, his voice carrying a sharp authority, walk us through what you've uncovered. Kesha nodded and began with precision. She projected charts onto the smart display brought in by Operations Director Janet Kim. This department's turnover rate among diverse employees is 73% over the past 18 months, triple the company average. 4 active discrimination lawsuits total $847,000 in potential payouts. Revenue has dropped $2.3 million this quarter due to client defections, 3 of which specifically cited cultural incompatibility and unprofessional conduct. CFO Patricia Monroe's fingers flew over her tablet, calculating the broader financial picture. Add in market cap losses from this morning's live stream, negative $23 million, and annualized client revenue losses of $8.7 million, she said, looking up grimly. Our total exposure exceeds $43 million in the past 12 months. Gasps rippled through the gathered employees. Derek shifted uncomfortably, opening his mouth to speak, but legal counsel David Martinez cut him off. Mr. Williams, you have the right to respond, but let me be clear. We have timestamped recordings, witness statements, and policy violations on camera. Your conduct, this morning alone, breaches multiple California labor codes and Sterling's own policies, 12.4, 4, 15.3, and 22.1. Sarah Monroe stepped forward from the crowd. I have 8 months of recordings, she said, holding up her phone. This morning wasn't unusual. It was just the first time he was careless enough to make it public. Luis Rodriguez added quietly, I've worked here 15 years. I've never seen a manager cause so much damage to people and to the company's reputation. Kesha didn't allow the momentum to slip. She opened a folder of printed transcripts. These are Derek's own words, she said, reading aloud. These people don't belong in professional roles. We need fewer diversity hires, they can't do the work. The crowd shifted, many looking away in discomfort. The words were damning, the timestamps matched work hours. The voice was unmistakable. Janet Kim spread departmental metrics across the table. Mr. Williams' division holds the lowest client satisfaction scores company-wide and has lost 3 major contracts worth over $2 million annually. Derek's voice cracked. This is a setup. She came in here pretending to be someone she's not. That's called an undercover assessment, Martinez interrupted coldly. You volunteered. Every single word and action we have documented. No one entrapped you. You exposed yourself. The board members exchanged brief glances. Roberts looked to Kesha. Your recommendation? Immediate termination for cause, she said without hesitation, and the implementation of cultural reform measures. Mandatory bias training at all management levels, a real-time behavioral reporting app with direct board oversight, quarterly culture audits, and a zero-tolerance policy for discrimination. This morning's incident proves these measures are non-negotiable. Patricia Monroe's voice was firm. I support this. If we don't act decisively, we risk not only legal penalties, but catastrophic brand damage. Roberts straightened, his decision clear. All in favor of terminating Derek Williams for gross misconduct, breach of company policy, and conduct detrimental to Sterling Financial. Effective immediately. 4 hands rose without hesitation. It's unanimous, Roberts said. Mr. Williams, security will escort you out. You will forfeit your severance as per contract clause 15.3. Your benefits are terminated, and your access is revoked. Derek's shoulders slumped. He looked around the room, but no one met his eyes. The guards stepped forward. Roberts turned back to Kesha. Miss Washington, you have full authority to implement your reform package immediately. What you did today not only protected this company's integrity, it set a standard for the industry. Let's make sure we follow through. As Derek was led away, the board closed ranks around Kesha, reviewing her proposals point by point. The atmosphere had shifted, the chaos of the morning was transforming into resolve. Sterling Financial had just lost $43 million to one man's prejudice, but in its place, they had gained a blueprint for a cultural revolution. And a leader who had proven, beyond any doubt, that she could deliver it. The boardroom on Sterling Financial's 47th floor still carried the weight of the morning's cluster day confrontation. The chairs around the mahogany table were filled, Chairman Roberts at the fore head, the rest of the board leaning forward as Kesha Washington stood beside the smart display. Outside the floor-to-ceiling windows, the San Francisco skyline shimmered, but no one's attention drifted from the woman who had just dismantled a toxic manager in front of the entire company. Sterling Financial can't afford to treat this as an isolated incident, Kesha began, her tone calm but resolute. What happened today is a symptom of deeper structural issues that, if left unchecked, will continue to damage our people, our reputation, and our bottom line. She tapped her tablet. And the display lit up with a slide titled, Comprehensive Cultural Reform. Strategy. The first measure was mandatory anti-bias and cultural competency training for every manager and executive. This isn't a one-day workshop where people check a box, she explained. It's a recurring, interactive program with real-world scenarios and measurable outcomes. Managers must demonstrate competency and inclusive leadership before they can retain their positions. The second initiative was the launch of the Dignity at Work app, a secure, anonymous platform allowing employees to submit feedback or report incidents directly to the board's placed Cultural Oversight Committee. Too many voices go unheard because people fear retaliation, Kesha said, scanning the room. This app ensures concerns reach the highest levels without being filtered or buried by biased intermediaries. Next came direct board oversight of cultural metrics. Kesha outlined a quarterly audit system where external consultants would assess departmental cultures, turnover patterns, and employee engagement data. These audits bypass the usual chain of command, she stressed. The board will see unfiltered results, and any department failing to meet cultural standards will face immediate corrective action. Then she addressed the policy shift that made several executives sit up straighter: zero tolerance for discrimination. The events this morning illustrate why incremental discipline doesn't work with prejudice, Kesha said firmly. From this day forward, any confirmed act of discrimination, verbal, behavioral, or systemic, will result in immediate termination for cause. No warnings. No second chances. This protects not only our employees but our shareholders. She moved to the financial justification. Charts showed the correlation between inclusive workplace cultures and higher retention, stronger client relationships, and improved brand perception. Our losses from Derek Williams's conduct exceeded $43 million over the past year, she said, but companies with strong cultural frameworks see, on average, a 25% increase in productivity and a 19% boost in revenue over 3 years. This isn't just an ethical imperative, it's a growth strategy. Chairman Roberts leaned back, nodding slowly. What about accountability at the top? He asked. Kesha smiled slightly. It starts here. Every board member, including myself, will undergo the same training, and submit to the same oversight as the rest of the company. Culture change has to be modeled from the highest level down. The plan concluded with the creation of a Diversity Innovation Fund, a $500,000 annual budget dedicated to scholarships, mentorship programs, and leadership pipelines for underrepresented talent. We're not just preventing harm, Kesha explained. We're actively investing in the people who will carry Sterling forward. When she finished, the room was silent for a beat, the weight of the proposal sinking in. Then, Patricia Monroe, the CFO, broke the quiet. From a financial perspective, I can't argue with this. If we had implemented even half of these measures 2 years ago, we might have avoided millions in losses. Legal counsel David Martinez added. From a compliance standpoint, this is bulletproof. It demonstrates proactive governance and would be looked on favorably by regulators and courts alike. Roberts called for a vote. One by one, hands went up, unanimous approval. Miss Washington, he said, you have the full authority and resources to implement this strategy. Let's make Sterling Financial the industry benchmark for corporate culture. As the meeting adjourned, Kesha gathered her materials, aware that this was the true turning point, not Derek Williams' fall, but the company's commitment to rise. The reforms she had outlined weren't just about fixing a single problem. They were about rewriting the rules of how Sterling treated its people, ensuring no one would ever again be invisible or powerless within its walls. By the end of the trading day, the numbers told a story as dramatic as the morning's events. Sterling Financial's stock, which had dropped sharply in pre-market trading after Derek Williams' live stream went viral, not only recovered but closed at a new quarterly high. The swift, transparent handling of the crisis, combined with the decisive termination of Derek and the public unveiling of Kesha Washington's undercover mission, sent a powerful signal to investors. Major institutional funds, impressed by the company's governance and commitment to cultural accountability, increased their positions. ESG rating agencies upgraded Sterling's social responsibility score within 24 hours, citing the company's exemplary crisis management and policy reform. The media coverage was equally swift. Headlines across business outlets praised Sterling's leadership for turning a public relations disaster into a blueprint for corporate reform. Video clips of Kesha revealing her true identity were replayed on major networks, sparking nationwide conversations about workplace discrimination and leadership accountability. Social media sentiment, which had been overwhelmingly negative during the live stream, shifted dramatically. Hashtags celebrating Kesha's composure and intelligence trended for days, positioning her not just as a corporate executive, but as a symbol of strategic dignity-driven leadership. Inside the company, the effect was immediate. Employees who had been demoralized by years of quiet tolerance for toxic behavior now walked the halls with renewed confidence. The fear of retaliation for speaking out began to lift. Departments that had experienced high turnover saw a surge of engagement, as staff recognized that leadership was not only listening, but acting. Kesha's presence on the executive floor, no longer in a janitorial uniform but in her tailored suit, became a visible reminder that change was real and backed by the highest authority. Chairman Roberts wasted no time granting Kesha full autonomy to implement her reform package. Her proposals: mandatory bias training, the Dignity at Work app, direct board oversight of cultural audits, and zero-tolerance discrimination policies, moved from concept to execution within days. Emergency funding was approved, and dedicated cross-brass departmental teams were assigned to support the rollout. Roberts addressed the global workforce in a live-streamed meeting, affirming that Kesha's reforms had the unanimous backing of the board, and that the events of the morning would be remembered as the turning point in Sterling's cultural history. For Kesha, the short-term victory was more than a personal vindication. It was proof that transparency and decisive action could transform not only a company's market performance, but its very identity. In a single day, Sterling Financial had gone from being a cautionary tale of corporate prejudice to being hailed as a model for inclusive, accountable leadership. And she now had the authority to ensure that transformation would last. In the months following the incident, Sterling Financial's transformation became more than an internal success story. It evolved into a national benchmark for corporate accountability. Industry analysts coined the term the Sterling Standard to describe the company's model of swift, transparent response to workplace discrimination, coupled with measurable cultural reform. Competitors, wary of facing similar public scrutiny, began reaching out to Sterling's leadership for guidance. Within a year, over 200 companies ranging from financial institutions to tech firms and healthcare networks had adopted key elements of Sterling's reforms, from anonymous reporting systems to zero-tolerance policies with board-level oversight. The story of Kesha Washington's undercover mission and Derek Williams' public downfall became a staple in business school curricula. Harvard Business Review published a detailed case study titled Undercover Leadership: Turning Crisis into Corporate Culture Change, which quickly became the most downloaded article of the year. MBA students dissected Kesha's strategy, learning how preparation, documentation, and timing could dismantle entrenched prejudice without descending into chaos. Professors used the case to challenge future leaders. How do you balance empathy with enforcement? How do you align moral principles with corporate profitability? Media outlets continued to cover Sterling as an example of what was possible when leadership refused to protect toxic management for the sake of hierarchy. Articles praised the Done-this company for not burying the incident behind legal settlements and NDAs, but instead using it as a teaching moment, both internally and publicly. ESG rating agencies cited Sterling's reforms as a reason for its record-high governance scores, and investors rewarded the company with sustained confidence. Over 18 months, Sterling's market capitalization grew by 12%. Fueled in part by new client acquisitions from firms impressed by its transparency and values-driven operations. Inside the company, the culture shift was tangible. Employee engagement surveys showed a dramatic rise in trust toward management. Turnover in historically marginalized employee groups dropped to single digits, and internal promotions among diverse candidates increased by 35%. Departments that once struggled with collaboration found new energy under leaders trained in inclusive practices. The Dignity at Work app, once viewed as a bold experiment, became a daily tool for feedback and early conflict resolution, preventing small issues from escalating into public crises. Kesha's leadership extended beyond Sterling. She began speaking at corporate governance conferences, sharing the blueprint that had worked so effectively. Her message was clear: accountability isn't a threat to business, it's the foundation of sustainable growth. She was invited to serve on the boards of 4 other companies, each eager to replicate Sterling's cultural transformation. The Service Employees International Union, which had once been at odds with management, publicly recognized Sterling as a partner in progress. Perhaps the most enduring impact was the shift in how corporate America viewed discrimination, not as an HR inconvenience to be quietly settled, but as a systemic risk with tangible financial consequences. The viral footage of Derek's humiliation, once a scandal, was now used in training programs as a cautionary tale about the cost of unchecked bias. At Sterling, new hires were shown the video during orientation, followed by a module on the guest company's values and accountability policies. For Kesha, the long-term victory wasn't just in the numbers or accolades, it was in knowing that her work had sparked a movement. The Sterling Standard had become more than a policy framework. It was a promise that prejudice would not be ignored, that leadership would act decisively, and that dignity in the workplace was non-negotiable. And as more companies followed suit, it was clear that the ripple effects of that morning on the 47th floor would be felt for years to come. Kesha Washington's victory at Sterling Financial was never just about reclaiming her dignity, it was about using her position to protect and uplift others who had no voice. In the CT0 wake of the Derek Williams incident, she founded the Workplace Dignity Foundation, a company-backed initiative that provided legal resources, mentorship programs, and career advancement opportunities for employees from marginalized backgrounds. Cleaning staff, entry-level clerks, and junior analysts, those who had once been most vulnerable to discrimination, now had a direct pathway to leadership development and educational support. Within a year, multiple employees who had once been overlooked were promoted into supervisory and managerial roles. Kesha didn't just change the company's policies. She transformed its soul, embedding fairness and opportunity into its very structure. For her, the real triumph wasn't the public vindication, it was knowing that long after the headlines faded, the protections she built would continue to shield and empower the next generation. True power is not measured by the titles you hold or the spotlight you stand in, but by the number of people you lift up along the way. Kesha's story reminds us that when you survive injustice, you have a choice. You can walk away quietly, or you can build something so strong that no one else has to endure what you did. If this story moved you, share your thoughts in the comments. Have you ever seen someone turn a personal battle into a victory for many? Your voice matters. And if you want more real stories of courage, justice, and transformation, hit the subscribe button, like this video, and turn on the notification bell, because together, we can keep rewriting the rules for a fairer world.